it goes a lot further beyond that. It's not just an issue of weight management. Okay. So you guys at the moment, this is your muscular activity. Okay. Sitting down in the chair. Right, so get up and stand. Just stand nice and still. Good. I heard not anyone wants to stand in the last session. There you go, got you up already. Right, just standing still, your muscular activity increases quite a bit. Your muscles still need to contract to keep your balance and your posture. Okay. Now do a few steps, if you can, if there's space. You can see these sharp spikes in your activity now. Okay? A little bit more onerous for yourselves. Good. I want you to sit back down now. Okay? You might get a chance to stand later on. Sit back down. So, if we're contracting our muscles a lot less over the day, and we look at our muscular activity pattern on a graph like this, it's not going to be very satisfying for individuals to see a straight line for most of the day. Right? And aside from it not being very satisfying to look at, it's actually going to impose on a number of other health markers, aside from expended energy. So this is one of the first large-scale studies that was published to show that this muscular inactivity over the course of the day increases risk of health outcomes, adverse health outcomes. So these guys from Australia, they've been the pioneers in this type of research. What they looked at was the amount of TV viewing time individuals spent. This TV viewing time data is the first indication that we got that excess sitting was distinctly a risk factor for different diseases. And what they showed is that the individuals that sat for more than 4 hours a day had a significantly higher increased risk of all-cause mortality. They're 46% higher than the other two groups. And the bit of putting capitals and bold at the bottom is the bit that I think is really, really important. Okay? This increased risk persisted regardless of the amount of time the individuals spent exercising. Okay, so regardless of the amount of time they spent in exercising at a moderate intensity or higher. It was also regardless of the amount of body fat they had. Also regardless of the amount of energy intake they had. And so they adjusted for these factors in their statistics and showed that this is the resulting increased risk. Okay. Quite alarming. And that spiked a lot of research from that year onwards. And I want to show you here that I'll talk you through this graph, but essentially showing the same thing. And this is in a clinical population. So these are in adults with cardiovascular disease or diabetes. And tracked individuals over a number of years and looked at how many deaths occurred, essentially, according to their sitting time and their physical activity level. And the important bits are the red bars, okay, sticking up. Right, and what that depicts is individuals who sat for more than 11 hours on average per day. And you can see in the individuals, so on the x-axis along the bottom, this is grouped by amount of physical activity they did. So no physical activity, these individuals were meeting or exceeding the physical activity guidelines, and these were doing a heck of a lot more. The individuals that done no activity on average per day, if they sat for longer, their risk of mortality went up. That's probably expected. But one thing we didn't expect to find is that in the individuals who met or exceeded the physical activity guidelines, even though they were getting their 150 minutes per week or more, if they sat for 11 hours or more, their risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, mortality shot up. Still went up a lot. Okay, so starting to see now that it's really important that we don't just focus on the amount of moderate to vigorous physical activity individuals do. We also need to be focused on how much sitting they're doing as well. This is a review study that was published only 4 years ago. And these are all the studies that have been done to date that looked at sedentary behaviour or sitting specifically and a risk of an adverse health outcome. And each square up here represents a different study. Okay. These blue squares only 4 studies found that there was no association between sitting time and a health outcome. Right. The orange ones, or yellow, whatever colour you think it is, right, there was associations, but they were influenced somewhat by the amount of body fat or the gender of the population that they were looking at. And all these ones in red mean that regardless of any other factors that they considered, there's an increased risk of a certain health outcome from sitting for too long. Okay, so there we've got weight problems, diabetes, there's some cancers as well. We have an increased risk from a lot of sitting, cardiovascular diseases and mortality, whether it's from anything or a cardiovascular disease. So that's quite convincing evidence there. And this picture here is quite a nice way of viewing how someone might be active, okay, but also a couch potato. So this is what we call an active couch potato. You might call it something else, that's up to you. Right. But what we're looking at here is all the blue, right, the dark blue, they're being sedentary. They're either sitting or laying down, not expending much energy. Right. And I should say this doesn't include sleeping time. Right. That is good for you. Okay. Right. If there's any waking activity we're looking at, it's all the blue, being sedentary, sitting down. Then you've got the yellow and the red. And you can see some scattered about, and actually this individual is achieving their physical activity guidelines on this day. Right. They're getting there half an hour. Right. But the amount of time that they've spent sedentary, 71% of all the time they've been awake. So we've heard the phrase couch potato a lot, but now we might be looking at people, are you an active couch potato? Possibly. I'm not sure it'll catch on for a while, right, but we'll see. Okay. So it's good evidence then to suggest that people sitting for prolonged periods of time, right, more than 4 hours watching TV or more than 11 hours sitting doing anything over the day, it's going to increase the risk of disease, regardless of the amount of exercise someone does.